Wendy Brown talked about how neoliberalism is better thought of as a rationality than as an ideology, because the way that it kind of reconfigures subjects and the way that we even think of ourselves is like it's become a complete and total rationale for every action that we take. We judge what actions to do based on what the future returns might be, right?
Yeah. And what we're doing
is like a profit loss.
Yeah, and what we're doing is we are moving away from the light, to be melodramatic about it. We are mechanizing ourselves to no end, to no good end. To what good end? What? A planet that's cooking to death? People that are either starving or dying of obesity? I mean, everyone miserable? Is that what all this optimization is bringing?
Well, and no one with any job that gives them any sort of sense of.
And the thing they dangle in front of you is like, well, eventually they're going to be like what, rocket cars or like immortality potions, and it's like, bitch, none of that's for you. No. None of that is for you.
No, it's part of it. What I think it is, it's a way to disconnect us from ourselves, from our own souls, basically, from your essence, and it essentially despiritualizes you, so that when we do all fucking die, when we're cooked to death, we can't get to heaven because there's no soul to get there.
Exactly. We cannot transcend. We cannot, in the imminence of death, we cannot transcend because we do not have the vocabulary to do so. The internal work has not been done because we've been doing the work of others our entire lives.
100%.
See, I'm doing my part to protect my species being by I've been planning on short ribs that take 3 days to make.
Hell yeah.
So
do it.
This is why
3 days short ribs.
This is why Liz hates AOC so much, because she cooks in that method where you just put everything in a pot.
Well,
I personally like eating because it's a miserable life.
Food's like sex in that it's a thing that is both intellectual and physically pleasing at the same time. There are very few things that are both. Most things are one or the other. That is sensuality and intellect combined into one experience. That's the stellar fucking cauldron that created humanity and the universe. And you get to be there for one moment in that. And then, nope, I would rather suck on soil like a goddamn hamster with one of those things poking next to my workstation.
They make cookies.
Those are rational. But the thing is, that is a rational response to being in a neoliberal subject. You can say it's horrible, but I gotta live. I gotta pay the bills. I have to do this stuff. I have to do it in a way that gives me the least amount of pain. Even though I'm training my spirit and I'm not giving any time to build an actual species being, I have to get along. And so you can't argue that they're wrong to do this, because you would have to dismantle the whole architecture of their lives.
The thing is that they're maybe more onto something than we are in this, because the whole thing, if you have a spirit under the current regime, it is a painful thing to have.
Indeed.
It is a painful thing to have. And so I cannot fault anybody for wanting to squelch their self and to destroy their self.
Some Nepenthe, a little bit of balm of Gilead, because there's nothing but ceaseless pain and confusion and fear, because we have no access to any higher plane.
Looking out of the ocean and like seeing like the impossible, hugeness of the world, and realizing, dreaming of the stuff, that is basically like cutting yourself. Now it's an act of torture, of self-torture, because what you're doing is wishing for something that's impossible. And in doing that, you're harming yourself. So what you should be doing is you should just be looking at the ground all the time. Those are the real smart people.
They're good. The soil is good. The cummies are good. It's like, this stuff is good enough. It gets me through the day. And it's like, you can't blame anyone for making those choices. What you have to push back on with compassion, I think, and that's the thing I'm going to try to work on more, because that hasn't generally been Chapo's deal, is against pushback with compassion, the idea that this is good.
Yeah.
This is like the reason that I've been thinking about this is I said something about Better Call Saul the other day. And I said, this show would have been much more fun, in my opinion, if it had been like a case of the week Rockford Files thing. Like, oh, what's Saul going to do this week? Who's he going to get out of jail?
Serialized?
Yeah. But the thing is, it can't be that because it has to be good.
Yes.
Because people have to feel like their time watching it is well spent. And since they don't read books because
are we getting your prestige take now?
What?
This is your prestige drama take, right?
This is my refined and like more, hopefully more like textured version of what was original. Like I look back at what I wrote about that, like, and I was like, oh, that's embarrassing. I was only even gesturing towards what I was trying to get at, which is that like prestige CD being a commercial medium is a broad spectrum entertainment, which means that the degree to which anyone kindles to it artistically is going to be relatively dim because it's casting as wide a net as possible because it's a commercial product. And that's fine. You can have fun with it and enjoy it on those terms. But because TV is all we have, because we have lost the energy and creativity and time to read or to pursue like challenging artistic endeavors, be either creative ourselves or even absorbing others, we have to say, actually, no, TV is as good as books, actually better than books. This is the best thing ever. And then you have to make these shows that are all just crude parodies of each other that are only holding on to these trappings to tell the viewer, you should be spending your time on this. When the reality is the time spent watching fucking Better Call Saul is no more or better well spent than the time spent watching the 1,000-Pound Sisters on TLC. It depends on what you were experiencing while you're watching it.
Well, the thing is, what they try to do too is you saw this concerted push with Netflix and chill, which was the purposeful entwining of the sexual act with the deadening act of watching whatever show on Netflix, mixing that with your jism to create a new for some reason it drains you. It does take your jism. It takes your life force and it drains you.
It's a black mass ritual.
Absolutely.
You get home and you literally, the carnal act, instead of being kindled by like a feeling for another person, it's literally kindled by boredom. We've watched this shit. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And then it's another thing to keep you in your nutrient cube. Mm-hmm. With your ideal subject has got Netflix and Soylent coming into their tubes, and that's good enough for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is like a lot, like this is the stuff that a lot of trad people and like reactionaries talk about, and people get mad at them because yes, they have bad priors that make their solutions bad, and they should be fought on those terms.
But it doesn't mean the analysis is wrong.
Don't fight against when they're right. Like the idea is, no, if you concede anything to anyone, then they win. It's like, motherfucker, that is not a dialectic.
No, and the thing is, I think why that stuff appeals to some people is because it does show like a yearning for something else, for like obviously all those Deuce Volt, all those, like you can see it with all those people who like basically all those like overnight like Catholic converts that you see.
Yes.
Like, these like people who were like whatever, raised with two Jewish parents or something, and then become like this big trad cath person because it is that they're unable to understand like what their desires are or like where their desires come from, but they have those desires, and so they're like, well, I do yearn for like a simpler time. This seems like a simpler time, but it was so regimented that's why it was simple. Or something like that.
And the thing is that like that yearning and even the vocabulary of it can be engaged with productively, but you have to have good faith, which no one has.
Liz has
which literally zero people have in like the public sphere, except for Liz, of course.
Well, I think also if you do engage with any of it, then you're just accused of being fascist.
Right, of course, because both sides have created an anti-dialectic where every confrontation reifies your separate views, what do you think that leads to? Do you really think one wins? When has that ever been the case? It's called the common ruin of the contending classes for a reason. Every person doesn't have conscious politics, even if everything is political in the sense that politics shape why, like, your responses and what you think, but not everyone is conscious of a political agenda, and people like politically invested people who have made that part of their identity cannot conceive of that.
Yeah.
They can't, like, it's like, yeah, no, he doesn't care about politics. Like, what are you talking about? He talks to Sam Harris. Isn't he doing that for a reason? It's like, no. He's like, oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's like, and the right wing thing resonates because, you know, if you don't have formed politics, some guy's saying you should talk to everyone, and someone else is saying you shouldn't talk to X, Y, and Z. Well, if you don't have preconceived political, like a vent or I keep forgetting the word for it, the fucking mesh on a pan or whatever to like catch the meanings and resonances behind free speech. It just means like, look, these guys have the free speech. And the other side is literally just telling you don't talk to them. And then if you ask them why not, they say, fuck you, that's why not. How dare you even consider talking to them? You should already know not to talk to them. Yeah. Well, it's like, motherfucker, I don't. And what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to yell at you until the world ends, until we all kill each other and die angry and scared and freezing to death on a rock.
Well, Liz and I talk about Liz is a big proponent. Me, I don't care because I would never be able to like debate or talk to anybody without purely just making fun of the way they look physically, which would technically lose me the argument. But Liz doesn't do that and is a big in favor of talking to people who you despise or whose politics are fucking stupid. Because that's also how sort of we refine our own arguments too.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to how confident you feel about engaging in that debate. And most people with politics have not thought about their politics very deeply, and they don't even know why they disagree.
I mean, I don't think that like every conversation or like engaging in topics that are quote unquote verboten or people that are quote unquote verboten is necessarily like the same thing as debating someone, I guess. Right. Yeah. Like I just like I'm not interested in some like tete-a-tete because but I also don't find any of that kind of like fruitful. Yeah. But the idea, I mean, kind of what you were saying, like, you know, the principles of the dialectic or whatever, if we can even, use that very abstractly, let's say. But like this idea that like there is nothing to be gained by talking to people you disagree with or who are, it's like the most absurd notion to me. Like it goes against like everything that I understand about intellectual or political culture or like how to develop one. It's like, no, you don't develop an intellectual or political culture by completely insulating yourself from ideas that challenge you or challenge what you what you hold to be your own ideas. That's just not how it works. So it's completely absurd to me to then say like, no, it's actually like socially illegal for you to engage with these people or these ideas.
But the thing is, the word you use there that is key is develop. Developing a worldview, developing politics, developing a personal praxis of like, beliefs. None of these, most people's, I would say most, like I'm not even pointing fingers at like, woke scolds, whatever that means, or ID, anything like that. Get rid of like those notions. Just most people, even if they have politics, they did not develop them. Yeah. They don't go through the work of developing the thoughts. They just grab information. They go on a Twitter feed and they grab, here's X, Y, and Z articles that prove the point that these other people I saw making a point made, and then I will repeat that point. And so they can't engage with ideas they don't agree with, because they don't know how to argue, because they can't even explain why they believe what they believe. How are they going to explain it to somebody else?
No, that's exactly right. They can't even make an argument for the thing that they themselves believe they are arguing for.
Yes, and that's true of ISIS guys and like alt-right or whatever. Like,
because they fundamentally believe, and this goes back to the worldview that they have, that like there are certain evil ideas out in the world, right? Yeah. And so because of the way that, like you say, the way that they've again, you're correct to say develop is the wrong word, but have like I'm saying yours a belief system.
Yeah. Like there should be like this is an awkward thing.
Ideas just sort of like exist, including bad ones, and you pick and choose.
Yeah.
Which means you can, just like see the bad idea and you just delete it and you get rid of it. So if we just get rid of the bad things, if we stop engaging with the bad things, then that will go away. I mean, this is a completely, not only is it like solipsistic and anti-intellectual, but it's nihilistic and it's the complete total destruction of any political culture.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
Yeah, because people have an idea that you can be a thing, that I'm a Marxist, I'm a Christian, I'm a Nazi or whatever. No, you're not. You're just a fucking tube of goo.
Well,
you act in certain ways, in certain environments that accrue to be an identity. And because this is all purely abstracted on Twitter and in the internet mostly, it is purely abstracted from personal practice. So it's entirely, like you said, a grab bag of things you saw other people say. Because you haven't done the work in yourself to make sense of why you believe what you want. And you have heard things, you have like the cry that we all do for transcendence and for communion with others, but you don't have a vocabulary to even understand what you want.
And
because
the thing is,
you have done the work, and because you're constrained, because we all are. But you have to fight against the constraint.
The thing is it's like is not everybody needs to know even all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't expect everybody to, but the problem is,
I'm not talking about information like discrete information or books. I just mean thinking through problems.
But the thing is,
even if you don't use a book, even if you just use your own reasoned sense,
essentially the way that like everybody essentially, I'm just talking about in America here, but really in most Western countries, there is no sort of centralized apparatus to which we like adhere, if that makes any sense. Like there's no political party, there's no coherent.
There's no Politburo. Yeah,
exactly. And so like the way it works, the way everyone's politics works, is that like we all just believe sometimes totally wildly different things that like oftentimes we just believe because we encountered some like Twitter account we like and think is funny, which is like, okay, again, like I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, like
no, but
good
it's
or bad for that. But
you have to engage with it. You can't just let it there.
Exactly, and the problem is without like a political party which has like a constitution and a political program and stuff like that. Is you can't, like, there's no way for us all to believe the same thing or whatever.
No.
And like, people are like, it becomes an evil to have like to demand that because it is this American sense of individuality where it's like, no, we're all just like, we're the left and we're diverse and we all believe different stuff.
But what's really insidious about that is because there's no central committee offering the Moscow line, what we have instead is it's self-policed by like the social milieu, which is of course neoliberal. And so a neoliberal social milieu is disciplining left-wing discourse. How is that supposed to end with anything other than leftism being drained of any real challenge to neoliberalism or capitalism?